Hello there. We have a very special story today. In God's House, an original story written by Ridge Williams. I am an old man, not in body, but in spirit. At the age of 30, I've struggled against many malignancies, step by step, not slowed by the terror of my reality. My mother, rotted away by the repercussions of a life led by rotten promises and decayed dreams, often swam in the comfort of inimical poisons. My son, haunted by the calamity of his mother's gnarled fate, customed his body with opiates. One day, he sold himself beyond the edge of oblivion. My father, an editor and author of Senior Age, was shot a gratuitous amount of times in the chest by a man of weakness and abasement. He died for the coins in his pocket. Only 3 cents. Barely enough to buy a stick of gum. My greatest friend, a man of renaissance and talent, was forced to take up arms for his government. Hearsay, he says he took his last breath in a pit of split and blood somewhere in Korea. His body is yet to be found. A disgusting misuse of a soul fought in a war we had no part in. But what has driven me to the altar of God for the last time isn't the promise that I may see my family in the afterlife. It's to curse the one who has destroyed my wife's work and violated her ambitions. Sara was an elegant woman. Her laugh would echo in the ears of any man she would host in conversation. Her tears halted any surrounding persons until her sadness ceased. Her eyes were a light to the night sky as her body flowed like the oceans during a typhoon. We found each other at a luncheon hosted by the university I was an undergraduate at. I was producing drugs that abetted victims of amputations, while she was a lead analyst for a program that researched the cure to cancer. From what I've heard, her team was close to victory. The body's hiccups were finally to cease. The bane of man solved. At the end of each workday, she retired with the taste of triumph in her mouth. Every night I dozed to the ramblings of her brilliant mind. As I awoke to the sound of a dream, almost realized cancer is an omnipresent beast, lurking in all its prey, waiting for the opportunity to pounce. We were blissfully enjoying our 2nd year of marriage when the news was disclosed to us. She had a fat tumor lodged in her pancreas. The doctor gave her 4 months, only to last 3. That night, the night I lost my last treasure, I gazed into the heavens and cursed God for the first time in my life. Why did he have to slay one of his own children in such an agonizing method? Why did he have to end her with such grand irony? I had never danced with religion in my later years. Only as a small child would my parents drag me into their practices, and as I grew into teenagehood, they allowed me more freedom to ignore these obligations. I hadn't visited the old hovel in some time, only now I wasn't a small child. The massive wooden doors alerted anyone inside of the darkness to my presence. After switching on the lights, I approached the grand symbol hanging from the farthest wall from me. Same symbol had bared millions of previous eyes. Blameless souls with no other resort. This was a place where men came to lay their sins onto a father, to discharge their lives of immortalities, to fill their hearts and minds with hope. But I wasn't here to fess up my sins, wasn't here to absorb hope. I am here to maledict my tormentor. I brought myself to my knees and allowed my eyes to follow the grain of the symbol. Closing my eyes, I began a tremendous monologue. I prayed of many things that evening. I prayed for my father, whose killer was still unhinged. I prayed for my son, a mere child taken from me in the wake of her loss. Finally, I prayed of my wife, an angel slain by her own father. By any means is this righteousness? How is it a fair woman could spend the majority of her life trying to defeat an unfathomably dangerous beast just to be burdened by the same set of jaws? What righteous being can look upon his own creations with such black humor? At this point, any effort put into my thoughts were gone. I wasn't praying, I was ranting, complaining even. Tears formed behind my eyelids, my knuckles white. Soon resorted to buzzwords to get a hollow point across. I curse you, God, and all of your foulness. A being of torment and malice, you walk across our world without proper reason or constitution, without ambition or elegance. Why should I be loyal to such an evil deity? What kind of father would expect me to kiss the feet of such a monster? This went on for some time, as my brain resorted to lost synonyms to construct arguments I knew would fall on opposite ears. But as the night came to an end, so did my soliloquy. My eyes now opened were glazed over, watching nothing but a distant scene.
Fie.
I turned to inspect the chapel, to find nothing. I continued to scan my surroundings and find the source of the uttered phrase. My eyes eventually wandered to the top of the lengthy building to witness a horrible sight. A colossal blob hung from the ceiling, the size of an elephant. Writhing, it fell to the wooden floor below, making a stomach-churning splat. It squirmed for a second, before becoming still. Suddenly, the surface, which previously seemed to be sort of cloudy gelatin, turned to completely smooth. Black glass, while still retaining the properties of its previously squirming form. Without warning, two massive eyes, the size of bowling balls, appeared on the top of the oddity. They were glassy, distant gray things, only color coming from the awfully bloodshot veins in its eyes. Its pupils wandered and made horrible alien sounds before settling on my small form. Then it spoke.
Edward Snowfield.
Its words had no tone, entirely flat yet held a strange, soothing property.
Is it that thee resent God?
It sounded as though it had came from a man on depressants, entirely monotone. My throat was spasming. Yes, I am sincere.
Why?
It started to grow, arching itself over me until its head was nearly above mine. Its eyes bulged from their sockets, extending inches across to the point where nature would dictate normality.
God hath given thee life, wherefore hath thine betrayed his love.
What? I couldn't make reason of its odd choice of words.
Speaketh, or art thee unable?
It roared. He destroyed my family, my friends, everything I hold dear. I was barely audible, terror crushing my throat.
Hark!
The sudden presence of emotion jolted me.
Dear Saint Leo, the one that hates the Lord is a fool. Mine validation is complete. Young Edward, I know with no complete criticism of the Lord could exist, forsooth not within the mind of a simpleton.
My teeth were too wired shut in terror to rebel to the strange, almost incomprehensible phrases.
So as mine inquisition ends, I am to inform thee of thy luck. Edward, God hath been forgiving as of late. Count thy blessings and pray for a bountiful life.
Just as the abomination ended its sentence, it slipped across the wooden floor at an unfathomable speed and slammed into my body. I flinched, expecting pain, only to experience blackness upon impact. It had almost been 2 months since my encounter with the Eldritch being. I was found in the church, laying on the pews as though I had fallen asleep while praying. I have not yet spoken of my happenstance. for the fear of ridicule is too great. The demon's speech was principally incomprehensible, except for the mention of a Saint Leo. Saint Leo, the name has been swimming around in my head like a dog aimlessly wandering through a field, bouncing around trying to find a place to settle. I've gone to many libraries, churches, archives, areas where scholars of the past might help me in my search, but to no avail. Not a single preacher, historian, or book held the name Saint Leo with any significance to my circumstances. It was frustrating, the truth of the meaning lost, only stimulated by the vague fact. A month passed, nothing. Half a year and only still a memory. Soon I delayed each visit to the local archives and various libraries. My steady once-a-day incursions now only brought me searching once a week, then a month. Finally my trips ceased altogether. Soon I forgot details about the incident. I forgot the horror of standing in the shadow of such an oddity. My life went on, and I eventually convinced myself that the whole ordeal was a mere dream, brought up from my unconscious by unrefined emotions. It would be 2 years later that my interest would be resparked. I was on holiday with an old friend 2 countries over. During our time together, he proposed we visited one of the nearby libraries. I eagerly approved. The library was archaic, hundreds of years older than the ones I visited during my explorations. Once inside, my friend and I scrambled, instantly losing ourselves between the pages of ancient books. Not even an hour passed before memories of my investigations. "Excuse me, ma'am," I timidly asked, to an older woman sitting behind a large marble desk. "Do you have any books on the subject of St. Leo?" She was made microscopic by the massive desk dividing us, her brow wrinkled. "I don't believe so. Do we have a time period?" I thought for a second. Books I explored at home only dated back as far as the 1300s, though many were ambiguous about dates. I shook my head. Possibly sometime before 13 AD? She stood from her chair and onto her toes and pointed down one of the library's wings. "Go down 16 columns to the left. That's pre-King Edward." I thanked her, followed the columns, and started my search. It was pressed deep within the aisle, a collection of 6 books held true. Titled Profound Findings, it held hundreds of first-hand testimonies from the perspective of lesser-known holy men, compiled into 6 volumes. Most were senseless, usually involving the subject taking herbs or plants, which modern medicine associated with hallucinogens, just to recall experiencing events closely related to famous theological tales. All were similar in nature, except one. An account from a lucid St. Leo detailing loosely scientific atrocities on heretics. Various inquisitions were held against sinners. Though I use that word lightly, no specific quotes were recorded, but each questioning session recounted nearly 300 per heretic. At the end of his section, about 2 pages in length, there was a note card. Upper levels, section 24, left bookcase. Soluzioni proposte. My Italian was rough, but it loosely translated to proposed solutions. Upper levels were off limits to the public, cited that each book is too delicate for just anyone to touch them. Fortunately, my friend, still buried in literature, was a generous donator to the library. Long story short, I convinced him to convince the woman behind the front desk to let us observe with no contact the books beyond the 2nd level. The name and section clattered around in my mind. Section 24, left bookcase. Soluzioni proposte. Section 24, left bookcase. Soluzioni proposte. Section 24. Over and over, not daring to let it slip from my brain. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. Here. I turned towards the dusty left bookcase, most of the spines covered in thick powder, After minutes of brushing dust, I found it. Soluzione Proposte was no fat epic. At first glance, it might have been only 15 pages thick. Layers of grime skinned off the book when I picked it up. I wiped the caked lint off the book and noticed it wasn't much of a novel or encyclopedia, as it was a journal. Messy leather and straw held together the book, and as I peeled the ancient pages, almost unintelligible scrawls lined the page. I flipped to the beginning and started to read. End of part 1.